3 months had passed since Jake Sullivan walked out of the council chamber. President Zarathul stood at the center of the same room, but now it felt different. Empty chairs marked where 3 member species had stopped sending delegates. The remaining aliens shifted nervously in their seats. "The situation is getting worse," Zarathul announced. Her scales were gray now, the color that meant worry and fear. "Trade routes are failing. Pirates attack our ships daily. The outer colonies are in chaos." Council member Vextar, a Vorthon with bright purple feathers, flapped his wings in distress. "My people's merchant ships cannot travel safely anymore. The humans used to escort us through the dangerous sectors. Without their protection, we lose 3 ships every week." "The humans were supposed to withdraw to their home system," said Council Member Theiss. She was an Aquarian, speaking from her water tank through mechanical translators. "Instead, they are expanding everywhere. They ignore our orders completely." Zarathul activated the main display screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with different colored dots marking controlled space. 3 months ago, human space had been a small blue area around Earth. Now blue dots spread across dozens of systems. "Human colonies have not only refused to evacuate," Zarathul said. "They are building new settlements twice as fast as before. They have claimed mining rights in 47 asteroid fields that we declared off-limits." The room filled with angry, chittering, hissing, and mechanical sounds as the different species reacted. They had expected the humans to beg for readmission to the council. Instead, the humans were acting like they did not need the council at all. Council member Draksh raised one of his 4 arms. He was a Cantorian, built like a giant insect with metal implants replacing parts of his body. "Our intelligence reports say the humans are developing new technologies, weapons and ships that violate the development treaties." "What kind of weapons?" asked Council member Lynn Ara. She was an Etherian, tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. Her species was known for being logical and calm, but even she sounded worried. Zarathul changed the display to show a human ship. It looked different from the vessels humans had been allowed to build under council supervision. The hull was darker and covered in strange angular plates. The weapons were larger and positioned in ways that made no sense according to council military doctrine. "This is the EDF Defiance," Zarathul said. "It was built in the shipyards at Mars. Our spies report that it has adaptive armor that can adjust to different types of attacks. Its weapons use energy-focusing technology that we thought was impossible to miniaturize." "How did they develop such things so quickly?" Vexatar demanded. "They did not develop them quickly," said a new voice. From the back of the chamber, Council member Zephos walked forward on his 6 legs. He was a Hexian, one of the oldest species in the council and known for his knowledge of history. "The humans have been working on these technologies for decades. We stopped them from building anything with our restrictions." The room went quiet. The implications were clear. The council had not been protecting the galaxy from dangerous human technology. They had been stopping humans from building defenses that they clearly already knew how to make. "There is more," Zarathul continued. She changed the display again to show communication intercepts. "The humans are talking to non-council species. They are offering technology and protection in exchange for mutual defense agreements." Council member Thys bubbled angrily in her tank. "They are building their own alliance. This violates every principle of galactic order." "What principles?" Zephos asked quietly. "The principles that say only we can form alliances? The principles," that say only we can decide which species deserve advanced technology? Zarathul's scales flickered between gray and red. The Council has maintained peace for over 1,000 years. The humans are threatening that peace. Are they? Zephos asked. Or are we? Before anyone could answer, an aide rushed into the chamber. It was a young Altarian with scales that flashed rapid patterns showing extreme urgency. President Zarathul, we have an emergency communication from the Proximan system. The main display changed to show a blue-skinned Proximan in what looked like a military uniform. His large eyes were wide with fear, and his hands shook as he spoke. This is Admiral Kellum of the Proximan Defense Force, the alien said. We formally request immediate assistance from the Galactic Council. Zenthari warships are approaching our system. They claim we are in rebellion for refusing to increase tribute payments. The transmission ended. Every alien in the chamber knew what this meant. The Proximans had been forced to pay heavy taxes to the Zenthari for decades. It was legal under Council law, but it had made the aquatic species essentially slaves to their crystalline masters. The Zenthari are within their rights, Kethvar said. His glass body glowed with satisfied orange light. The Proximans signed the tribute agreements willingly. They signed because the alternative was bombardment of their home world, Zephos replied coldly. Before the argument could continue, the display activated again. This time it showed a human in a dark blue uniform with captain's bars on his collar. Behind him, other humans worked at control panels that looked far more advanced than anything the Council used. This is Captain Ron Mitchell of the Earth Defense Force, the human said. We have received a request for assistance from the Proximan. Government! EDF ships are moving to respond! Kethvar's body flashed bright red. The humans have no authority in Proximan space. This is a violation of our territory. The human captain smiled. It was not a friendly expression. The Galactic Council kicked us out, remember? We are not bound by your laws anymore. The Proximans asked for help. We are going to help them. The transmission cut off. The council chamber erupted in chaos as 12 different species tried to speak at once. Some demanded immediate military action against the humans. Others argued for diplomatic solutions. A few suggested that maybe the humans had a point. Zarathul called for order, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. When the chamber was finally quiet, she spoke in a voice that carried barely controlled anger. This is exactly what we feared would happen. The humans are interfering with established order. They are encouraging rebellion among species that have been peaceful for generations. Peaceful or oppressed? Zephos asked. The same thing, Kethvar snapped. Order requires hierarchy. Some species lead, others follow. The humans never understood this. Maybe the humans understood it too well, said a voice from near the entrance. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Kelly Roberts walking into the chamber. She was human, but she wore no Earth diplomatic credentials. Instead, she carried a datapad and wore a simple gray suit that somehow made her look more dangerous than any weapon. You have no authority to be here, Zarathul said. Her scales were now bright red with rage. Kelly smiled and held up the datapad. I represent the Proximan Republic, the Vegan Trade Consortium, and the Free Colonies of Kepler 442. They have all withdrawn from the Galactic Council and requested human assistance in forming a new alliance. The chamber went dead silent. 3 more systems have left the Council in the past week, Kelly continued. 2 more will vote on withdrawal tomorrow. Apparently, when other species saw humans leave and succeed, they started wondering why they were staying. She placed the datapad on the nearest table. This contains formal notices of withdrawal from 5 member systems, mutual defense pacts with Earth, and requests for technological assistance. The age of Council dominance is over. Keth Var rose from his chair, his body blazing with angry red light. You cannot destroy 1,000 years of order in 3 months. Kelly looked at him with the same cold smile. Watch us. As she turned to leave, she spoke one final time to the assembled aliens. You had 37 years to treat humans fairly. You chose to treat us like children who needed to be controlled. Now you get to see what happens when the children grow up and move out. The great doors closed behind her with a sound that seemed to echo forever in the silent chamber. Outside the Council station, human ships moved through space with purpose and confidence. They carried new technologies, new allies, and new ideas about how species could work together. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had thought possible. Inside the chamber, 12 alien species sat in their comfortable chairs and realized that their comfortable galaxy was disappearing. The order they had maintained for a millennium was crumbling not because of war or disaster, but because someone had finally offered a better alternative. The humans had not started a revolution with weapons or threats. They had started it by simply walking away and showing others that walking away was possible. Now the question was not whether the Council could stop the humans. The question was whether the Council could survive what the humans had started. Captain Ron Mitchell stood on the bridge of the EDF Venture and watched 12 human warships drop out of faster-than-light travel. Around them, the Proximan system stretched out in all directions, filled with the blue-green glow of inhabited worlds. 6 months had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. Ron had been a junior officer then, following orders and keeping quiet about his opinions. Now he commanded a battle group and had permission to use his own judgment about how to handle threats. "Sir, we have incoming transmissions from the Proximan." "Government," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the communication station. "They confirmed that Zenthari warships entered the system 2 hours ago and are demanding surrender." Ron nodded. "What do our sensors show?" 8 Zenthari cruisers in standard Council formation," answered Commander Lisa Parker from the tactical station. "They are broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. The Proximans have 48 hours to submit or face bombardment." "To show them that the rules have changed," Ron said. "All ships, battle positions. Broadcast this message on all frequencies." The main screen activated, showing Ron's face to both the Zenthari fleet and the Proximan colonies below. "This is Captain Mitchell of the Earth Defense Force. This system is under the protection of the Terra Pact. Any aggressive action against Proximan colonies will be met with immediate response." The reply came quickly. The screen showed a Zenthari commander, his crystalline body flashing angry red patterns. "I am War Leader Nethrak of the Zenthari Empire. You have no authority here, human. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Ron smiled. It was the same expression that Kelly Roberts had used in the Council chamber, cold and confident. "War Leader, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Your ships are designed for intimidating defenseless colonies, not fighting real battles. This is your only warning." The Zenthari commander's body blazed brighter. "You dare threaten the Zenthari Empire? We have ruled this sector for 800 years. Past performance does not guarantee future results," Ron replied. "You have 10 minutes to leave the system." The transmission cut off. Ron turned to his crew, all of whom were watching him with expressions of excitement and nervousness. They had trained for this moment, but training was different from reality. "Sir," Lisa said quietly, The Zenthari are forming attack formation. All 8 ships are moving toward us. Good, Ron said. Fire a warning shot across the bow of their lead ship. Make sure they know we are serious. The EDF Venture fired a single quantum torpedo that streaked across space and exploded harmlessly 100 meters in front of the Zenthari flagship. The blast was bright enough to be seen on the planet below. Now broadcast this message to every ship in both fleets, Ron ordered. The Terra Pact does not seek to conquer or control. We fight only to protect those who ask for our help. Any ship that withdraws now will not be harmed. For a moment, space was quiet, except for the hum of engines and the beeping of sensors. Then the Zenthari fleet opened fire. Ron had expected this. The Zenthari had built their reputation on being willing to use overwhelming force against anyone who challenged them. They could not back down without losing face across the galaxy. All ships, engage, Ron commanded. Target engines and weapons, only. Disable, do not destroy. What happened next became known across the galaxy as the Battle of Proxima. It lasted exactly 17 minutes and changed everything about how space combat was understood. The Zenthari ships fired in the standard Council pattern, concentrating their attacks on single targets while maintaining defensive formations that had worked for centuries. Their energy weapons were powerful, and their armor was thick. The human ships fought differently. They moved in unpredictable patterns, never staying in formation for more than a few seconds. Their adaptive shields adjusted to each type of attack, becoming stronger against energy weapons and more flexible against projectiles. Most importantly, they worked together in ways that Council military doctrine said were impossible. Commander Lisa Parker coordinated the attack from her tactical station, but she did not give orders to other ships. Instead, she shared information. Each human captain made their own decisions about how to respond, creating a fluid battle plan that changed every second based on what was actually happening. The Zenthari found themselves fighting not 8 separate ships, but one large organism that could think and adapt faster than their command structure could respond to. Zenthari flagship is disabled, Lisa reported. Engines and weapons offline. Second cruiser is drifting, added Lieutenant Kim. They are requesting assistance. One by one, the Zenthari ships were systematically disabled. Their crews were not killed, but their ability to fight was completely removed. After 17 minutes, 8 proud warships floated helplessly in space, their crystalline crews forced to broadcast surrender messages. Ron opened communications to the disabled Zenthari fleet. War leader Nethrak appeared on screen, his body dim with defeat and humiliation. "You have won this battle, human," Nethrak said, "but the Zenthari Empire will not forget this insult. We will return with more ships." "Maybe," Ron replied. "But next time, ask yourself if it is worth it. The Proximans never hurt anyone. They just wanted to be left alone. You could have let them go and lost nothing important. Instead, you chose to fight and lost everything." After the Zenthari ships limped away, Ron received a communication from the planet below. Admiral Kellum of the Proximan Defense Force appeared on screen, his blue skin bright with relief and gratitude. "Captain Mitchell," Kellum said, "the Proximan people thank you. We have lived in fear of Zenthari retaliation for generations. Today, for the first time, we are truly free." "Freedom is not something we can give you," Ron replied. "It is something you have to take and keep for yourselves. But we can help you defend it." 3 days later, the Proximan Republic formally joined the Terra Pact. They were the 7th system to leave the Galactic Council and ally with humanity. More importantly, they were the first to do so after seeing human military power in action. The news of the Battle of Proxima spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications could carry it. Within a week, representatives from a dozen non-council systems were requesting meetings with human diplomats. Within a month, 3 more council members had voted to withdraw and join the Terra Pact. On Earth, President Matt Turner stood before the Global Assembly and announced the formation of the Terra Pact Defense Force. Unlike the Council's rigid military hierarchy, the TPDF would be a cooperative organization where each member species contributed according to their abilities and received protection according to their needs. "We do not seek to replace the Galactic Council's tyranny with our own," Turner said to the assembled representatives of humanity. "We seek to create something better, a galaxy where species work together as equals rather than as rulers and subjects." Meanwhile, on the research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Helen Carter was leading breakthrough advances in technology that the Council had suppressed for decades. Free from Council oversight, human scientists were making discoveries that changed everything about space travel, communication, and energy production. "The quantum entanglement communicator is operational," Dr. Carter reported to the Science Council. "We can now maintain instant communication with any Terra Pact system regardless of distance." The implications were enormous. Council ships still relied on message drones and relay stations to communicate across the galaxy. Human ships could coordinate in real time across unlimited distances, but the most important development was not technological. It was social. Ambassador Kelly Roberts stood in the meeting hall of Kepler Station, the Terra Pact's first jointly built facility. Around her sat representatives from 15 different species, all working together to solve common problems. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of the council chamber, this meeting had no single leader. Each species contributed their expertise to discussions. The aquatic Proximans advised on underwater colony construction. The insect-like Vespens shared techniques for efficient resource processing. The energy-based Luminols offered new insights into power generation. Humans coordinated and facilitated, but they did not dominate. "The Dalian system has requested membership," Kelly announced to the assembly. "They offer mining expertise and defensive positions in exchange for protection and technology sharing." The Dalians had been a council member for 300 years. Their decision to leave and join the Terra Pact represented a significant shift in galactic politics. "What about the Council's response?" asked Representative Veltar of the Vespens. "They will not ignore the loss of another founding member." Kelly smiled grimly. "Let them try to stop us. Every action they take to preserve their power only shows other species why they should leave." She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Blue dots representing Terra Pact systems now outnumbered the green dots of remaining council space. Red dots marked neutral systems that were considering which side to join. 6 months ago, humans sat in uncomfortable chairs and asked politely for fair treatment, Kelly said. "Today, we offer that fair treatment. To anyone who wants it, the choice is theirs." Outside the meeting hall, construction crews from 5 different species worked together to expand the station. They used human organizational methods, Proximan engineering techniques, and 1 year after humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, President Zarathul stood alone in her private office and stared at the galaxy map on her wall. Half the stars that had once been green now glowed blue. The Terra Pact controlled more systems than the Council did. Her aide, a nervous young Altarian named Kesavar, entered with the daily reports. His scales flickered between gray and yellow, colors that meant bad news and fear. The Hexian Confederacy has voted to withdraw from the Council, Kesevar reported quietly. They cite unfair trade restrictions and excessive tribute requirements. Zarathul closed her eyes. The Hexians were one of the founding members of the Council. Their decision to leave meant that more than half of the original 12 species had now abandoned the organization their ancestors had built. "What about military response?" she asked. "General Vakmore reports that our fleets are spread too thin. We have lost 3 more engagements with Terra Pact forces in the past month. Our ships are not designed to fight opponents who ignore traditional tactics." Zarathul turned away from the map. Through her office window, she could see the great docking bays of Nexus Prime. Once they had been filled with ships from dozens of species, bringing trade and tribute to the Council capital. Now many of the bays stood empty. "Send word to the emergency session," she said. "Tell the remaining members that we need new strategies." 2 hours later, Zarathul entered the Council chamber and saw how much had changed. Only 8 species still maintained full membership. 3 others attended as observers, unwilling to fully commit to either side. The great circular chamber felt empty and cold. Council member Kethvar stood at the Zenthari delegation table, his crystalline body pulsing with angry red light. "We must take decisive military action. The humans have made us look weak across the galaxy." "Our military actions have all failed," replied Council member Linara. The tall Etherian's black eyes showed no emotion, but her voice carried frustration. "Human tactics are unpredictable. Their technology adapts to our weapons. Their coordination is superior to ours. Then we use different weapons." Kethvar snapped. "We have planet killers in storage. We can destroy Earth and end this rebellion permanently." The chamber went silent. Even suggesting the use of world-destroying weapons violated Council law and tradition going back centuries. "You cannot be serious," said Council member Zephos. The old Hexian had remained loyal to the Council even as his own species voted to leave. "Genocide is not an acceptable response to political disagreement." "This is not political disagreement," Kethvar replied. "This is existential threat. The humans are destroying everything we built. If we do not stop them now, the Council will cease to exist." Zarathul called for order as arguments broke out across the chamber. The remaining Council members were desperate, and desperate beings made dangerous decisions. "We will not use planet killers," she announced firmly, "but we must find some way to restore order." "What about economic warfare?" suggested Council member Theiss from her water tank. "We control the major trade routes. We can cut off resources to Terra Pact systems." "The Terra Pact systems are becoming self-sufficient," Linara replied. "Human technology has made many of our trade goods unnecessary. They are teaching other species to build things they used to buy from us." As the Council members debated increasingly desperate plans, a message arrived that changed everything. The main display activated to show a human in a dark blue uniform with Admiral's bars on her collar. "I am Admiral Grace Taylor of the Terra Pact Defense Force," the woman said. "I am broadcasting this message to all systems, Council and non-Council alike." Admiral Taylor stood in what looked like the bridge of a massive warship. Behind her, officers from multiple species worked at advanced control stations. The technology visible in the background was clearly superior to anything the Council possessed. "The Galactic Council has been discussing the use of planet-killing weapons against civilian targets," Taylor continued. "We have evidence of these discussions from multiple sources. The Terra Pact considers such threats to be acts of war against all sentient species." Kethavar's body flashed brighter. "How did they get that information? Our communications are encrypted." The Terra Pact Defense Force is now deploying to protect all systems that request our assistance, Taylor said. We do not seek conquest or control. We seek to ensure that no species faces extinction because they chose freedom over submission. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Within minutes, emergency communications began arriving from across the galaxy. Dozens of systems were requesting immediate Terra Pact protection. Several council members were receiving urgent messages from their own home worlds. Sir, Kesavar whispered to Zarathul, we are receiving reports of Terra Pact fleets moving to defensive positions around multiple systems. They are not attacking, but they are clearly preparing for large-scale combat. Zarathul realized that the council had lost the initiative completely. Every action they took was anticipated and countered by the humans. Every threat they made only drove more systems toward the Terra Pact. We need to try diplomatic solutions, she announced. Diplomacy with whom? Kethvar demanded. The humans refuse to negotiate. They offer only surrender disguised as cooperation. As if summoned by his words, the chamber doors opened and Ambassador Kelly Roberts walked in. She wore no diplomatic credentials and carried no guards. She simply walked to the center of the chamber and stood where human representatives had once asked politely for fair treatment. The Terra Pact is prepared to discuss terms, Kelly announced. Terms? Zarathul's scales flickered between red and gray. You are the rebels. You do not dictate terms to us. Kelly smiled coldly. Look around this chamber. Count how many of your founding members are still here. Check your fleet reports and see how many battles you have won. Review your economic data and see how much trade you have lost. She paused. We are not the rebels anymore. You are the holdouts. She activated a portable holographic projector that showed the current state of the galaxy. Blue Terra Pact systems now outnumbered Green Council systems by 3-1. Red neutral systems were switching to blue at a rate of 2 per week. The Terra Pact offers the following terms, Kelly said. Complete dissolution of the Galactic Council. Establishment of a new galactic cooperative based on voluntary participation and mutual benefit. All species, including former council members, are invited to join as equals. Impossible, Kethvar snarled. We will never surrender our authority to inferior species. Then you will lose it anyway, Kelly replied. The choice is whether you lose it through negotiation or through irrelevance. She turned to address the remaining council members individually. The Altarian Republic can join the cooperative and maintain their proud history as leaders in galactic affairs, or they can cling to a dying organization and be remembered as the species who chose pride over progress. Zarathul felt something she had never experienced in her long career. For the first time in her life, she was not the most powerful person in the room. The humans standing before her represented a coalition that was stronger, more advanced, and more popular than the Council had ever been. What guarantees do we have? Zarathul asked quietly. How do we know the Terra Pact will not simply replace Council tyranny with human tyranny? Kelly gestured to her holographic display, which showed the organizational structure of the Terra Pact. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of the Council, it showed a network of interconnected systems with rotating leadership and shared decision-making. Because we learned from your mistakes, Kelly said, we saw what happens when power is concentrated in the hands of a few species who think they know better than everyone else. The Terra Pact is designed to prevent that from ever happening again. She deactivated the projector and prepared to leave. You have 72 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires, and you can deal with the consequences of your choices alone. As Kelly walked toward the exit, she paused and looked back at the assembled aliens. "For what it's worth, we hope you make the right choice. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. But it's not big enough for both cooperation and domination." The chamber doors closed behind her with a finality that seemed to echo through the ages. For the next 3 days, the remaining council members debated frantically. Some argued for continued resistance. Others pushed for immediate surrender. A few suggested trying to negotiate better terms, but outside the chamber, the galaxy continued to change. 3 more systems joined the Terra Pact. 2 council fleets surrendered without fighting when they encountered superior Terra Pact forces. Most importantly, public opinion polls on council worlds showed that majorities of citizens favored joining the cooperative. On the 3rd day, as the deadline approached, Zarathul stood once again in her private office and looked at the galaxy map. The green areas representing council space had shrunk to a handful of core systems. Everything else was blue or red, and the red areas were turning blue every day. She had 2 choices. She could lead the council into a final, desperate war that they could not win, or she could try to salvage something from the collapse of everything her species had. 2 years after Jake Sullivan walked away from the Galactic Council, the same chamber that had once witnessed humanity's humiliation now hosted the first meeting of the Galactic Cooperative. The uncomfortable metal chairs were gone, replaced by adjustable seating that could accommodate any species. The rigid circular arrangement had been changed to a more open design that encouraged discussion rather than formal speeches. Ambassador Kelly Roberts stood at the center of the chamber, but she was not in charge. Today, leadership rotated to Captain Lisa Monroe, who had been elected by the member systems to coordinate this historic gathering. Around them, representatives from 68 different species worked together to address common challenges. "The first item on our agenda," Lisa announced, "is the establishment of trade routes that benefit all member systems equally." The discussion that followed would have been impossible under the old council system. Species that had been enemies for centuries offered to share resources and expertise. The aquatic Proximans proposed underwater mining techniques to the desert dwelling, Sarathi. The energy-based luminals offered power generation technology to mechanical species who had never imagined such possibilities. Jake Sullivan, now retired from diplomatic service, watched from the observer gallery. At 73 years old, he had lived to see everything he had hoped for when he placed his credentials on that table and walked away from council tyranny. "Hard to believe it all started with you getting fed up with bad chairs," whispered Captain Ron Mitchell, who sat beside him. Ron now commanded the Cooperative Defense Force, a military organization that had never fired a shot in anger because conflicts were resolved through negotiation before they reached the shooting stage. Jake smiled. The chairs were just a symbol. The real problem was that they never intended to treat us as equals. On the chamber floor, President Zarathul of the Altarian Republic was addressing the assembly. Her scales had returned to the bright blue-green of health and confidence. Leading her people into the cooperative had restored her popularity at home and given her a new purpose. The Altarian Republic proposes the establishment of joint research stations, Zarathul said. "By combining our species' different approaches to science, we can achieve breakthroughs that none of us could reach alone." The proposal was approved unanimously. Under the cooperative system, decisions required consensus rather than majority rule. This took longer than the old council's authoritarian approach, but it produced results that everyone could support. Dr. Helen Carter, now head of Cooperative Scientific Development, stood to address the research proposal. We have already seen remarkable results from interspecies collaboration. The quantum tunnel network connecting all our systems was built using human engineering, Ethereum mathematics, Hexian material science, and luminal energy manipulation. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy's new transportation system. Streams of light connected every cooperative world, allowing instant travel across distances that had once taken months to cross. Travel time between any two cooperative systems is now measured in hours rather than weeks, Dr. Carter continued. This has revolutionized trade, communication, and cultural exchange. In the Observer section, former council member Kethvar watched the proceedings with what might have been resignation or relief. The Zenthari had been the last species to join the cooperative, doing so only after their own people voted to overthrow the government that had insisted on continued resistance. I still do not understand how this is supposed to work, Kethvar muttered to his aide. 68 different species cannot possibly agree on everything. They do not have to agree on everything, his aide replied. They only have to agree on basic principles of mutual respect and cooperation. Everything else can be worked out through discussion. As if to prove the point, a disagreement arose on the chamber floor. The Cantorian representative objected to a proposed mining operation in the Vega system, arguing that it would disrupt migration patterns of space-dwelling creatures that his people considered sacred. Under the old council system, such a disagreement would have been resolved by whoever had more political power. The Cantorians, being a minor species, would have been overruled and forced to accept the decision. Under the cooperative system, the discussion continued until a compromise was reached. The mining operation would proceed, but using new techniques developed by the Vespa that would not disturb the migration routes. In exchange, the Cantorians would share their knowledge of space creature behavior to help other systems avoid similar conflicts. Everyone wins, Jake observed quietly. It takes longer to reach decisions, but the decisions are better because everyone contributes to making them. As the day's session continued, reports came in from across the galaxy. Construction of the first joint colony ships was ahead of schedule, with crews from 12 different species working together to build vessels that could establish settlements anywhere in the galaxy. The cooperative's first diplomatic mission to the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim had made contact with 3 new species, all of whom were interested in joining the growing alliance. Most remarkably, crime rates across cooperative space had dropped to historic lows. When species felt that they were treated fairly and had real voice in decisions that affected them, they had little reason to resort to violence or illegal activities. The evening news reports are interesting, Ron whispered to Jake. Unemployment is down, trade is up, scientific discoveries are happening faster than they can be cataloged. Even the weather seems better. Jake chuckled. I doubt the cooperative can control weather, but everything else makes sense. When people feel hopeful about the future, they work harder to make that future happen. As the session drew to a close, Ambassador Kelly Roberts took the floor for the final address. She looked older than she had 2 years ago, but also more satisfied. The stress of constant conflict had been replaced by the satisfaction of building something positive. 2 years ago, humanity made a choice, Kelly said to the assembled representatives. We chose to walk away from a system that treated us as subjects rather than citizens. That choice changed everything, not just for humans, but for every species in this galaxy. She paused and looked around the chamber at the faces of 68 different species, all listening with respect and attention. We did not walk away because we wanted to be alone. We walked away because we believed that all species deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Today, this chamber proves that we were right. The response was not applause, because many of the species present had different ways of showing approval. The luminals pulsed with brighter energy. The Aquarians created complex bubble patterns in their tanks. The Etherians simply stared with their large eyes in a way that conveyed deep satisfaction. But the message was the same across all species. They were proud of what they had built together. After the session ended, Jake walked through the corridors of what had once been the Council Station. The hallways were now filled with beings from dozens of worlds, all working together on projects that benefited everyone. Children from different species played together in the common areas, learning each other's languages and customs. He stopped at an observation deck that looked out into space. Through the transparent walls, he could see ships from every member. Species docked at the station. Human vessels worked alongside Proximan transports, Zenthari science ships, and Altarian diplomatic cruisers. "Quite a view," said a familiar voice behind him. Jake turned to see President Matt Turner, who had flown in from Earth to attend the session. Turner was grayer than he had been 2 years ago, but he carried himself with the confidence of a leader who had made difficult decisions that turned out to be correct. "I keep thinking about that day in the council chamber," Jake said. "When I put my credentials on that table, I had no idea what would happen next. I just knew that what we were doing was not working. Sometimes, the best decision is to stop doing what does not work and try something else," Turner replied. "The hard part is having the courage to make that choice when you do not know what comes next." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching ships from across the galaxy work together in perfect coordination. Humans had ended diplomacy with the Galactic Council, but in doing so, they had created space for real diplomacy to flourish. "Do you think it will last?" Jake asked. "This cooperation, this peace?" The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with voices from 12 different worlds. Speaker Veltar stood at the center podium, his blue skin growing darker with each passing minute. The Zephyrian leader had called this emergency session after the latest reports came in from the Outer Rim. "3 more colonies are gone," announced Ambassador Quindal. The tall Altarian's voice cracked as he spoke. "The Kethvar Empire destroyed everything. Ships, stations, even the orbital farms. Nothing remains." Jake Morrison sat in the human section, a small area that most delegates ignored. Humanity had joined the Council 50 years ago, but their single solar system made them seem unimportant compared to species that controlled hundreds of worlds. Jake watched the other representatives panic and felt his jaw tighten. The Kethvar had appeared 6 months ago from the dark space beyond the rim. Their first message to the Council was simple: submit or die. When the Council tried to negotiate, the Kethvar responded by wiping out the peaceful mining colony at Zarion Prime. 10 million beings died in the first hour. "We must evacuate the outer worlds," said Captain Nalvin. The Christan officer commanded what passed for the Council's defense forces. His ships were built for exploration and rescue work, not war. "Our patrol vessels cannot match their firepower." Jake studied the tactical display showing Kethvar positions. Their ships were massive things, covered in weapons and armor. Intelligence. Reports called them conquest vessels, built for one purpose: destroying everything that stood against them. "What about negotiations?" Speaker Veltar asked. "Surely we can reach some agreement." "I tried," Quindal replied. Their war commander Thrakan laughed at our offers. He said weak species deserve to serve strong ones. Then he cut the transmission and attacked another system. The delegates started talking at once. The Verdani representative wanted to hide their population in underground cities. The Mokari suggested fleeing to the far side of the galaxy. Even the usually brave Draknari were discussing surrender terms. Jake stood up. His movement caught Speaker Veltar's attention, mainly because humans rarely spoke during council sessions. "Admiral Morrison," Veltar said, "do you have something to add?" "I have a question," Jake replied. "How long before the Kethvar reach the core worlds?" Captain Nalvin checked his datapad. "At their current pace, 14 days, maybe less if they split their fleet." "And how many ships do they have?" "We count at least 400 major vessels, probably twice that number in support craft." Jake nodded. "What about the Council fleet?" Nalvin's shoulders sagged. 87 ships total. Most are science vessels or light patrol craft. We have perhaps a dozen ships that could fight in battle, and even those lack proper weapons. The hall fell silent. Everyone knew the numbers, but hearing them spoken aloud made the situation real. The Galactic Council, which had maintained peace for over 3 centuries, faced complete destruction. "We should consider their terms," suggested the Hellenian delegate. "Perhaps serving the Kethvar would be better than extinction." "Have you seen what they do to servants?" Jake asked. "The reports from their controlled systems show mass slavery, entire populations working in their factories until they die, children taken from families to serve as soldiers. What choice do we have?" Quindal demanded. "Our combined fleets cannot stop them. We have no weapons, no warriors, no knowledge of warfare. The Council exists to prevent conflicts, not fight them." Jake walked to the center of the hall. The other delegates watched him with confusion. Humans were new to the galaxy, barely past their first interstellar flights. What could they possibly offer? "Speaker Veltar," Jake said formally. "I request permission to contact Earth Command." "For what purpose?" Veltar asked. "To ask for help." Several delegates laughed. The Mokari representative spoke up. "No offense, Admiral Morrison, but humanity controls one solar system. You have what? 50 ships? How can you help when our combined forces are useless?" Jake looked around the hall. These species had built a beautiful civilization based on cooperation and peaceful trade. They had eliminated poverty, disease, and conflict from their worlds. They represented the best that intelligent life could achieve. They were also completely unprepared for an enemy that wanted to destroy everything they had built. "Give me 48 hours, Jake said simply. 48 hours for what? Speaker Veltar asked. "To bring help." "What kind of help could possibly arrive in 2 days? Captain Nalvin demanded. "The nearest military force is weeks away, assuming any existed." Jake smiled, but it was not a happy expression. "You're thinking like a peaceful species. The Kethvar are thinking like warriors. Maybe it's time someone else did the same." War Commander Thrakan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. Through the massive viewing screen, he watched his fleet reduce another council system to burning wreckage. The weak species that lived here had tried to surrender, but Thrakan enjoyed the hunt too much to accept. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we have destroyed all military vessels and orbital stations. The planet below has no remaining defenses." "Excellent," Thrakan growled. The Kethvar were a warrior race, evolved from predators on a harsh world. They had conquered their own system through strength and blood. Now they would do the same to the galaxy. Orders, sir? Standard procedure. Take the young ones for training as soldiers. Put the adults to work in our factories. Execute anyone too old to be useful. Yes, Commander. Throken studied the star. Charts showing council space. Pathetic creatures, all of them. Centuries of peace had made them soft. They had forgotten that the universe belonged to the strong. His communication officer approached. Sir, we intercepted a transmission from the council chambers. They are considering surrender. Of course they are. Throken laughed. How long before we reach their core worlds? 12 days at current speed, sir. Slow our advance. Let them fear us a little longer. Fear makes conquest easier. Back in the council hall, Jake Morrison finished his encrypted transmission to Earth. The response came quickly, message received and understood. Help was coming. Speaker Veltar approached as Jake closed his communication device. Admiral Morrison, I hope you understand the situation. The Kethvar Empire has never been defeated. Their ships are larger and more powerful than anything in council space. I understand perfectly, Jake replied. That's why I called for backup. But what can humanity possibly send? Your species has been in space for less than a century. Jake looked at the tactical display showing Kethvar positions. Speaker Veltar, can I ask you something? Of course. In all your years of peace, has the Council ever fought a real war? We have no need for war. Conflicts are resolved through negotiation and compromise. That's what I thought. Jake gathered his things and headed for the exit. You might want to evacuate non-essential personnel from the core worlds. Things are about to get very loud. As Jake left the hall, he could hear the delegates returning to their panicked discussions. They spoke of evacuation plans and surrender terms. None of them mentioned fighting back because none of them knew how. That was about to change. Humanity had spent 50 years in the galaxy learning about other species, studying their technology, and mapping their worlds. The Council assumed humans were exploring and trading like everyone else. They were wrong. Humanity had been preparing for war. To find the next war that needs ending, Throken replied. Humans don't seek out conflicts, but they never run from them either. Somewhere in the universe, there are people who need protecting. The humans will find them. The galaxy settled into its new reality. Peace protected by those who understood war, freedom defended by those who knew its price, and hope maintained by species who had learned to fight together rather than against each other. Humanity had arrived in Galactic civilization as the youngest and smallest member. They remained to become its guardians, not through conquest, but through the simple promise that some things were worth fighting for, and some fights were worth winning. The Council was no longer unprepared for war.